Cower, worthless mortals, for you are about to be in the presence of Golan the Insatiable, Godlord terrible of good cruel, crusher of wills, defiler of all. Today we're going to go over the simple concept that turned into two versions of the same show. So a little bit of background for who we're going to be going over today. Golan the Insatiable started as a web blog series in 2010 from like a 4chan predecessor called Something Awful. And basically this guy would write from the perspective of Golan, who is a warlord from another dimension that mysteriously shows up here. And he's just kind of lamenting about how much he hates suburban Minnesota life. Golan is overly sexual and violent and genocidal.
You committed so much genocide, it's like not even funny anymore.
And there's like four main characters in this 9-part series. There's Golan himself. There's Yord the Mighty, who is supposed to be like this foil to Golan. He's basically a normal looking, cool guy that seems to fit in with society, who is also from Golan's homeworld, Gukruel, also doesn't know how he got here. There's Miss Budnick, which is just like some PTA mom that really gets under Golan's skin. And then there's Dylan Buchler, which is like this 17-year-old, I think, adolescent. He's the treasurer of the World of Warcraft fan club at school. And he's the first person to worship Golan and kind of form like a little cult around him, which just consists of like a whole bunch of 15-year-olds, underage teenagers. The last blog in the entire series ends on Golan discovering Jesus and seeking to usurp him from his position. It had like a 2-year run, and then it was done. The general idea of the whole series is crazy warlord from another dimension crash lands into normal society. Juxtapose something super weird with something super normal. 2013 animation domination high definition. Fox kind of tries to make a competitor to Adult Swim. I will say, I do like this period of Fox because it kind of institutes a break between the Seth MacFarlane adult animation that Fox likes to do as well. So, very welcome. This is relevant to us because Golan the Insatiable now finally hits the big screen, albeit in like 10-minute mini episodes, but he's there.
I don't understand. Where are my top chefs?
You probably didn't even record it.
Yes, I did. I have a season pass.
And the show kind of shifts in tone from what the comic was supposed to be into a kind of new idea. Golan crash lands in suburbia just like before, but this time, instead of this rivalry he has with Yord the Mighty and this cult kind of hinted at lifestyle, he now shifts to living with a singular family, the Buchlers. There, this 8-year-old Dylan Buchler immediately becomes obsessed with him and becomes his first and only acolyte throughout the entire series, ready to do whatever it takes to spread Golan's word of truth across the land. She's crazy, but she is 8, so it's forgivable. The whole family kind of just like takes him as he is. The whole neighborhood just doesn't react to the fact that there's a crazy demon-like creature just now living there.
You did not announce me.
Oh, shoot. Do you want me to still do it?
Oh, it's too late. Now it seems stupid.
Where he kind of takes care of Dylan and the whole family and just does his little part. A little bit of chaotic, but overall everyone kind of loves him. Dylan's appearance is goth, but she does still love her family and still care about everyone around her, although she does try to hide that a bit more. And nothing really too deep about her. Everyone's pretty surface level in this season.
Despite everything I've written in my hate journal, I love you and I'll miss you. And sister, I'm sorry that I've been slowly poisoning you.
What'd I tell you, Mom?
The show is fairly linear with its humor, and it's kind of grounded, albeit a bit upsetting with some of its scenes. The very first episode, Golan and Dylan go to a water park in order to impress a girl that Golan is kind of obsessed with. Dylan ends up going missing after Golan spends his time with the girl and one of her cool guy friends that he's also trying to impress because he needs approval and attention, similar to actually how he does in the comics. But when Dylan goes missing, he goes completely crazy, starts searching everywhere for her. The guy ends up finding her, Golan misunderstanding that the guy finds her for thinking that the guy stole her, and starts wailing on him to the excitement of Dylan and to the chagrin of the rest of the family. It all wraps itself up really quickly because it's 10 minutes and there's not really much you can do with that. and it's an okay introduction to the show.
Oh, I guess you do care if I live or die.
I don't.
Then why'd you paralyze Keith with a brick?
Oh, shut up.
It doesn't really explain why Golan's there. It doesn't introduce really any of the characters. I think it has fun interactions between Dylan's parents and Golan, who I do very much like. That's Richard and Carol Beekler.
Oh, Richard, come on.
Oh, you want to do it? All right, here we go.
Yeah.
And then we get to the interaction with the sister. This is the part of the show in the first season, which we'll call the pilot season, that I very much don't like, that the show tries to stress for some reason, is Golan is incredibly sexual and demeaning and creepy, to the point where it's not funny. He has a weird obsession with Dylan's teenage sister, which makes me very uncomfortable the entire show. And that's the girl he's trying to impress at the water park. And it's blown off of like, oh, he's being so goofy and silly, but he's really just creepy. The first episode does lend itself to showing you Golan's relationship with the town. He's crazy and violent, but he's just socially accepted and no one pokes too far into it. He's just a part of the community, and he has a sweet spot for his acolyte, Dylan, and would do anything for her. Miss Budnick does actually make a return when she's kind of like an old lady who just still doesn't put up with Golan's bullshit, but doesn't actually have any real dialogue between them, just more annoyed at the town and everyone in it, and that kind of includes Golan.
Golan, if you want the gazebo, you're going to have to fill out the proper paperwork.
Yeah, you don't think I know that, Mrs. Budnick? I tried to download the PDF, but it keeps formatting all weird and opening as a spreadsheet for some reason.
I don't think the show was made for me. It's not my kind of humor. When I was reviewing the show and looking into everything, a lot of the people prefer this season to the second one, which we'll talk about, but it's not my kind of thing. I do think it has some funny concepts. One of the episode ideas they try to play around with is Golan hears the discovery of the Tooth Fairy and just kind of like becomes obsessed with this notion of her, and so seeks to kidnap her, which again I do think goes too far with its like pure creepiness, where he ends up kidnapping someone's mom thinking it's the Tooth Fairy. But he also does this to impress Alexis, the sister. He does it to make her jealous, and it's weird. The season feels heavily inspired by the blog. Golan is put into everyday situations as a supernatural being. He is overly violent. He's overly sexual. Feels very in theme. There are 2 of the 6 episodes that I really do like in this season, one of which Dylan doesn't know how to read. So Golan goes about kidnapping her crush and putting her through like a crazy obstacle course in order to motivate her to read, which I do think is actually really funny and a really cute idea. There's also a really silly episode, which doesn't make any sense in description, but essentially he poops out a clone of his, which is just something he can do. A lot of weird magic voodoo associated with Golan, but basically Golan poops out a second version of him who's much nicer than him, and the entire town falls in love with and does everything he says and really likes him. And so Golan kind of is like, oh shit, maybe I should learn from him, only to find out this Golan is even eviler than he is, but in order to take over the world comes up with a plan of them both being super nice to get everyone to trust them. Our Golan Prime, is so anti this idea of being nice, he just flats out ducks out of the car they're driving in and kill him. Refuses, absolutely can't handle it.
What if instead of apologizing, I just tuck and roll? What is this tuck and roll you speak of? I'll show you. I still don't get it. Oh, that's what you meant.
Which makes this episode full circle, as Dylan's B-plot is hating the fact that Golan is now being nice because she's the only one that likes him for being evil. While I'm not a huge fan of the actual story in this season, I do very much like the backgrounds. I think they're really cool looking and they're like hand-drawn-esque. Feels a little bit like Tim Burton, and it feels like an Addams Family kind of vibe. If I had to say, I would say this show is about a weird, out-of-norm family. I do also really like the theme song in season 1. I think it's much better than the second one. It kind of shows more what's going on. There is no explanation for why Golan is there, though he kind of mentions a few things every now and again. But the theme song is basically how we can assume Golan got kicked out. Animation domination take 2. This time we shift to FXX. cable television, Fox wants to try their animation block again. So they do some reruns of a lot of their old shows that played on this, as well as create some new ones, including season 2 of Golan the Insatiable. The show takes a complete 180. The episodes in this season are just different. They have 23 minutes to work with now that they're on cable. They got the full half hour, so they just do whatever they want. So this season, it kind of adapts more, takes away a lot of the too extreme things. No more huge over-sexualization. Still a couple weird jokes every now and again, but nothing as bad. The animation is a lot more fluid. It utilizes smear frames, which the first season did not at all. It's really choppy. But the backgrounds are less unique, which to me is kind of disappointing because it was one of the things I really liked about it. Despite that, I think it's a huge improvement over the arc of the show and what direction they're going for. The humor is completely different. Golan is no longer pining after Alexis, and the whole town kind of feels just as chaotic as he does, which allows the jokes to be a lot more unique and not just dependent on him in a weird situation, but everyone also just being chaotic.
Because if your 617 does not make the local news, then you're dead to me. Hey, boss! How can I help you?
Hey, Knudsen, your son 617 gonna make the local news?
I'm trying, sir.
Well, he better, Knudsen, or you're dead to me.
Is your employee son 617 gonna make the local news?
I'm trying, honey.
Well, he better, sweetie, or you're dead to me. I'm trying, boo-boo.
Instead of revolving around the entire family and Golan's relationship, the show now changes to be Golan and Dylan's relationship, which I think is a lot more stronger and makes a lot more sense. And this is an opinion, and this is where we encroach on film theory. But I do believe Dylan kind of imagines Golan. I view him as more of an imaginary friend because a lot of the plots on the episodes revolve around Golan learning some sort of lesson that Dylan also needs to learn, and usually comes to the conclusion before Golan. Golan also acts as a way for Dylan to help communicate her feelings to her mom.
Dylan was only pretending to like dancing for you.
Really? But why?
My gosh, are you kidding me? She wants you to be proud of her, duh!
Not her dad, because they do actually take the dad out of this season, which I think is really funny of a decision. It leads to a lot more Carol jokes, being really thirsty for Golan, which is just surprisingly funny. It doesn't sound like it would be on paper, but they do pull it off.
Oh, Golan? Oh, he's not my boyfriend. He's certainly a possibility. I wouldn't kick him out of bed. I would not.
To be fair, the pilot season also had Carol thirsting after Golan, but I guess that looks worse when she is actively married.
I did a lot of things last week without asking first. This lady knows what I'm talking about. Am I right, Carol?
I should call you Golan the Incorrigible.
Richard wasn't the funniest character, but I did think him and Golan interactions were kind of goofy. Richard being absent actually does lend itself to more of the plot, which is more present in this season. Dylan has issues that they actually do address sometimes. She has psychotic episodes. She has abandonment issues that's explored in the last episode of the season, where Golan is prepared to abandon her the same way her father did in some way, the same way her hired buddy left her for her sister. There are real issues this show attempts to address, but in a very comical way, nothing too serious. The other reason I think Golan is imaginary is this season actually shows us what happened and how he gets here. Golan finds a tome of knowledge in her mother's office place basement for some reason and summons him from the other dimension. While Golan's gone, people rise up and take over his position and try to kill him when he goes back. So Golan isn't able to return, and Golan is stuck in this world with Dylan. Golan is an awful person, but also Dylan has terrible role models to work with, so this isn't out of the question. Dylan also has a scene where she imagines the faces of her friends, same age people on animals. So again, not really far to say she could just be making everything up. She's crazy. Carol also has some psychotic moments, so I do think it's possible that it runs in the family. The last reason I think this, but this is again also probably just because how cartoons are written, nothing Golan does is permanent. There's an episode where they behead this girl's mom and also eat the little girl's hand, but she deserved it because, you know what? Mackenzie B's kind of a Mackenzie bitch.
Oh, sorry. I accidentally accidentally dropped my juice on the back of your head. I'm so clumsy.
But in the very next episode, everyone has their faculties back, so it's not really a big deal. The second season is a completely different feel. It just is. The episodes are a lot less linear because now they have 23 minutes to work with. In one of the episodes, Dylan goes to a birthday party where there's a petting zoo, and one of the creatures is locked up. It's a turtle with, I believe, salmonella. And so she and Golan plot to put the turtle into the town's giant chili bowl, which is just an event that they do, and to poison everyone. During the episode, the turtle accidentally gets its arm broken, which leads to, I think, a really funny scene between the doctors and Dylan.
For this little guy, I prescribe a tiny bullet to his tiny turtle head.
No! Let's go, Dylan!
That turtle has a broken leg. Shoot it in the head.
It's weird, it's kind of wacky, but there's really funny jokes involved with it, and the show manages to pull it off pretty well. This season is funnier, it's more original, and it's got a lot of good stuff going for it. The show ends there, and there's no signs for anything happening in the future, but it was a fun ride, and while reading the blog, I found out there was like a Facebook page, so there's a whole fan base still here, and it's really goofy, and it's fun to enjoy. Definitely recommend it. You could also just skip to the second season if that sounds more appealing to you, or stick to just the first. They don't really have anything to do with each other, and it doesn't really matter which order you do it.